Ladies and gentlemen, let's cut through the noise for a second. I don't care who you are, where you're from, or how much success you've had. You've felt fear. You've looked at a goal and heard that little voice say, what if I fail? But here's the truth. Fear isn't the enemy. Fear is a compass. Fear is a signal. And if you learn how to harness it, fear becomes fuel. You see, most people think fear is something to avoid. They run from it. They shrink. They play small. But what if, just what if, the very thing you're afraid of is the key to your power? Fear says you're not enough. Power says, watch me. Fear whispers, stay safe. Power screams, break through. Fear is a gatekeeper to greatness. You want to grow, you want to lead, you want to dominate your industry, change your body, rebuild your life, then you've got to dance with your fear, not run from it. Now let me ask you something. How many times have you let fear steal an opportunity from you? How many moments pass you by because you were too scared to leap? Here's the difference between those who create extraordinary lives and those who stay stuck. The successful ones, the fulfilled ones, the leaders, they don't wait to stop feeling fear. They move anyway. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's taking action in spite of it. You want to turn fear into power? Here's how. Step one, get clear. Clarity is power. When you don't know what you want, fear fills the vacuum. Decide. Who do you want to become? What life do you demand? Step two, change your state. Fear lives in your body, so shift it, move, breathe, speak differently, stand taller. You can't feel terrified when you're owning your presence. Your physiology drives your psychology. Step three, make fear your servant, not your master. Feel the fear, thank it, then ask, what's the truth here? Fear lies, it exaggerates. But your power, that's real, your strength, that's always been there. Step four, train your mind like a warrior. If you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your rituals. Feed your mind every day, condition it. You want a powerful life? Then build a powerful identity. Sweep the room. You are not your fear. You are not your doubt. You are the creator of your destiny. You've just forgotten how powerful you are. So today, right now, I'm asking you to decide, are you going to keep letting fear run the show? Or are you ready to rise? Because there is a fire inside you that no fear can touch. There's a version of you that's relentless, unstoppable, unapologetically alive, and it's time to unleash it. So don't wait, don't pause, don't ask for permission. Stand up, step forward, and turn that fear into power. Let's go. Fear is a signal, not a stop sign. That statement alone can change the way you look at your entire life. See, most people treat fear like a red light, a full body signal to slam the brakes, retreat, freeze, or even give up completely. And because of that, they never start the business, never have the conversation, never take the leap, never push through. But fear was never meant to paralyze you. It was designed to wake you up. When you feel fear, it means something important is on the line. It means your brain has detected something unknown, uncertain, or potentially risky. And because your brain's number one job is survival, not success, not fulfillment, not greatness, just survival, it sends off that internal alarm. The problem is most people have been conditioned to believe that discomfort equals danger. That if your heart's racing, your palms are sweating, or your thoughts are spinning, something must be wrong. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Fear shows up at the edge of your comfort zone. It appears the moment you're about to do something that matters. That means fear isn't the enemy. It's a sign that you're close to growth. It's a signal that you're stepping beyond the familiar. If you weren't afraid, it wouldn't matter. Think about it. You don't get scared doing things you've already mastered. You don't fear brushing your teeth or checking your email or making a sandwich. Why? Because they hold no significance. There's no risk. But when it comes to having that conversation with your partner, standing on a stage, quitting your job, writing your book, sharing your art, telling someone how you really feel, fear floods in. Not because you're weak, but because you're alive. Your fear is proof that something deeply meaningful is at stake. And if you ignore that signal, you miss the invitation. Fear is asking, will you rise to meet this moment, or will you shrink? Will you trust your higher self, or will you let the old story win again? It's a choice. And that choice happens in a split second. The problem is, most people wait for fear to disappear before they act. They tell themselves, once I feel ready, I'll do it. But fear doesn't disappear with time. It dissolves through action. The longer you wait, the stronger fear gets. It feeds on hesitation. It grows in the space between your intention and your execution. That's why some people stay stuck for years, not because they lack talent or vision, but because they misinterpreted the signal. They thought fear meant stop. In reality, fear was telling them this is the moment you step in. When you rewire your brain to recognize fear as a cue, you start showing up differently. You stop avoiding the conversation and start initiating it. You stop backing away from the camera and start hitting record. You stop second-guessing your ideas and start launching them. You don't wait to be fearless. You learn to move with the fear. You learn to carry it like a weight that makes you stronger, not a chain that holds you back. Let's take a moment and look at every major breakthrough in your life. I guarantee fear was present in all of them. Whether it was saying yes to an opportunity you didn't feel ready for, ending a relationship that no longer aligned, or deciding to go all in on a dream, fear was there. But you moved anyway. And on the other side of that fear, power, confidence, expansion. You grew. You became more. You remembered what you were capable of. That's the process. That's how you evolve. Fear doesn't vanish because you hit a certain level. It doesn't go away once you hit your income goal or land your dream job or build your brand. In fact, fear often increases as your impact expands. Because the stakes get higher, the risk of visibility, judgment, rejection, it all intensifies. But now you're equipped with a different lens. Now you know that fear is just your body preparing for expansion. It's just energy. It's your system saying, we're entering new territory, let's wake up. You can either see that as a threat or as a gift. Some of the most successful, influential, powerful people you've ever admired feel fear every single day. But they've trained themselves to run toward it. They've learned that the greater the resistance, the greater the reward. They've built a reflex. Fear equals move. Fear equals act. Fear equals grow. They've burned that into their nervous system until it became automatic. The only difference between someone who rises and someone who stays stuck is the meaning they attach to fear. One sees it as danger, the other sees it as direction. One sees it as a wall, the other sees it as a doorway. One hears fear and shuts down, the other hears it and tunes in. You can start building that mindset today. Every time you feel the fear rise, breathe. Don't resist it, feel it, acknowledge it, let it speak. Then ask, what's this fear trying to show me? Often it's pointing to an area where you've outgrown your current reality. It's showing you that the old way won't work anymore. It's showing you what's next. It's pointing to the thing that matters most. Once you stop running from fear and start learning from it, everything changes. You start making decisions faster. You stop needing constant reassurance. You start walking into rooms with certainty. Not because you're fearless, but because you've built a relationship with fear. You know its voice. You know when it's trying to protect you and when it's trying to stretch you. You don't try to eliminate fear, you harness it. You use it to sharpen your focus, heighten your awareness, and fuel your drive. Courage is action in the presence of fear. That's the line that separates the dreamers from the doers, the talkers from the movers, the people who stay in the stands from those who get on the field. So many people think courage means being fearless, that to be brave you must first eliminate fear. That's the myth. That's the lie that keeps people stuck. Because if you wait for fear to go away before you act, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. Courage has nothing to do with the absence of fear. It's what you do while fear is still there. It's standing up when your knees are shaking. It's speaking the truth while your voice trembles. It's taking the leap while your mind screams, "What if I fall?" Courage is not the absence of doubt. It's the decision to move forward anyway. It's a muscle, not a mood. You don't feel your way into courage, you act your way into it. Think about every courageous person you've ever admired. The ones who spoke up, stood tall, risked it all, did something no one else around them dared to do. Every single one of them felt fear. But they didn't let it dictate the outcome. They didn't wait until they felt completely safe or ready. They made the decision to move knowing that fear would come along for the ride. And in doing so, they proved something powerful. Fear doesn't own them. It doesn't get the final say. And it doesn't have to own you either. People often ask, how do I become more courageous? The answer is simple. You do scary things. You step into discomfort. You lean into resistance. You make the call. You start the project. You show up when it's easier to stay hidden. And every time you do, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. You're reinforcing a new identity, one that says, I am someone who acts even when it's hard. Courage builds through repetition. It's not a one-time event, it's a practice. You don't become courageous by thinking about it, you become courageous by taking the step. Fear is primal, it's hardwired, it's your brain's way of protecting you from pain, judgment, rejection, and failure. But courage comes from a deeper place. It comes from the part of you that remembers your purpose, the part of you that knows why you started, the part of you that refuses to settle. When you connect to that part, when you let it speak louder than fear, you unlock a power that can move mountains. There will never be a perfect moment. There will never be a time when the fear is completely gone. What there will be is a decision point, a window, a flash of clarity where you realize you've got two choices. Shrink or expand, hide or step forward, repeat the cycle or break it. And in that moment, if you can choose movement over comfort, if you can take the action while fear is still in the room, you win. Because every act of courage reclaims your power. Most people are not living their full potential, not because they're not talented, not because they're not capable, but because they've given their fear the steering wheel. They've let it drive their decisions. And every time they gave into it, their world got smaller. The walls closed in. The voice inside got quieter. But when you act courageously, even in small ways, your world expands. Your voice grows. Your energy shifts. You start trusting yourself again. Courage is not reserved for the battlefield or the big stage. It shows up in everyday choices. The decision to speak your truth in a meeting, the decision to apologize, the decision to walk away from something that no longer serves you, the decision to start over. These are the micro moments of bravery that shape a powerful life. Most people overlook them because they think courage has to be dramatic. But real courage lives in the daily. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, gritty, and relentless. It's choosing alignment over approval. It's choosing growth over comfort. It's choosing action over avoidance. There's a moment before you act where the fear swells up. Your heart races, your breath shortens, your brain throws every reason at you to back down. That's the threshold. That's the barrier between the old you and the next level. Most people freeze there. They negotiate with themselves. They wait until it passes. But the courageous ones, they breathe into that moment and step forward, not because it's easy, but because they've trained themselves to move. They've made a habit out of bravery. They've learned that growth is never found in the safe zone. It's found in the stretch, in the uncertainty, in the heat of the moment where everything inside says no and they still choose yes. Courage isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the most aligned, the most honest, the most willing to show up as your full self, even if it shakes. It's saying, this is who I am without a guarantee of applause. It's standing in your truth when no one else understands. And sometimes it's standing alone. There will always be resistance. Every goal, every dream, every breakthrough comes with a layer of fear. That's the price of admission. If you want to rise, you have to walk through it. You have to lean into the unknown. You have to become someone who moves not because it's comfortable, but because it's required. Courage is the currency of change. Without it, nothing meaningful happens. Nothing transforms. But with it, doors open. New paths reveal themselves. Momentum is born. You'll never eliminate fear entirely, and that's not the goal. The goal is to rise anyway, to feel it and still choose action. To remind yourself again and again that fear may have a voice, but you hold the pen. You write the story. And every time you move through fear, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than you thought. That you've always had what it takes. You just needed to decide. You just needed to act. You just needed to remember that courage isn't waiting for fear to leave. It's walking forward while it's still there. Your physiology shapes your psychology. That's not just a motivational line, it's a principle rooted in how the human nervous system works. The way you use your body directly impacts the way you think, feel, and perform. And yet, most people walk around completely unaware of the link between their physical state and their emotional or mental state. They think their thoughts are just happening to them. They believe confidence, motivation, energy, and certainty are things you either wake up with or you don't. But the truth is, those states can be created on demand by using your body as the trigger. Look at someone who's confident. Look at how they stand, how they move, how they breathe. Their chest is up, shoulders back, chin slightly lifted. They make eye contact. Their movements are purposeful. Now look at someone who's defeated. Their shoulders slump forward, their gaze is down, their breath is shallow, they move slower. The two states look completely different. And here's the kicker. If you put your body into one of those shapes, you will start to feel the emotions that go with it. Emotion is created by motion. It's not random. Your nervous system takes cues from your body every second of the day. If you hunch your shoulders, breathe shallow, and move sluggishly, your brain interprets that as a signal that something's wrong. It begins to generate emotions that match that physiology. On the other hand, when you stand tall, breathe deeply, and move with certainty, your brain releases chemicals that reinforce that confident, empowered state. This is how people generate energy even when they're tired. This is how peak performers shift into flow even when they don't feel like it. They know that if they can change their body, they can change their mind. People often try to think their way out of fear, depression, anxiety, or procrastination. They sit in their heads and spiral, hoping for some magical thought to appear that pulls them out. But thought follows state. And your state is something you can change in an instant by shifting your physiology. That's why movement is so powerful. It snaps you out of the loop. It interrupts the pattern. When you get up, stretch your body, jump around, breathe in a new rhythm, you send a signal to your brain. Something has changed. That signal alone is enough to break the trance. Your posture, your facial expression, your breathing, all of it is either pushing you into a powerful state or pulling you into a disempowered one. And here's the important part. It works both ways. Yes, your thoughts influence your body, but your body also influences your thoughts. You can hack your emotional state through physical action. That means power is available to you at any moment, not because your circumstances are perfect, but because your body can become the switch. This is why elite athletes, performers, leaders, they all have rituals to prime their state. Before stepping on stage, they jump, breathe, shake out their arms, roar, move, tap into that version of themselves that's unstoppable. They're not waiting to feel ready. They're creating readiness. They're using their physiology to send a message to their nervous system. It's game time. You can do the same. You don't need a stadium or an audience. You need awareness, intention, and motion. When people say they feel stuck, unmotivated, or unclear, 9 times out of 10, their body is in a low energy, closed off state. Slouch posture, shallow breath, stillness. This posture feeds the story of being stuck. But if you get them to stand up, raise their arms, stretch their body, take in deep oxygen-rich breaths, they start to feel something different. They feel momentum, they feel space, they feel possibility. It's not magic, it's mechanics. You're simply working with the system instead of against it. Breath is a powerful lever. Most people breathe without thinking, but the way you breathe influences your state more than almost anything else. Slow, deep breathing calms the nervous system and brings clarity. Quick, sharp, intense breathing can energize and awaken you. It can shift you from passive to active, from fear to fire. Breath is one of the fastest ways to shift from stress to control. And the best part is, it's always with you. You don't need equipment, you don't need to go anywhere. You just need to remember to use it. Your body holds patterns. If you've been walking through life with the same posture, same breath, same gestures, it's no wonder your thoughts keep circling the same drain. To change your thoughts, you've got to change the patterns they live inside. That means practicing new physical habits, opening up your chest, moving more, speaking with power, creating rituals that activate your energy, making motion a non-negotiable, not because it burns calories, but because it builds state. Energy isn't something you always wake up with. It's something you generate. Think about how you feel when you're dancing, laughing, or even just walking outside in the sun. Your mood changes. Your perspective widens. Your mental fog clears. That's the body leading the mind. That's proof that you don't have to wait for some external change to feel different inside. You can access that shift through intention and movement. You can condition it. You can build it into your day, into your lifestyle, until it becomes automatic, until your default is one of energy and strength. We've been conditioned to separate the mind and body, but they're one integrated system. You can't just think your way to transformation. You have to embody it. You have to move like the person you want to become, stand like them, breathe like them, speak like them. Do that long enough and your mind will catch up. Identity follows behavior. State precedes story. Use the body to break the old story and write a new one. This is the gateway to creating lasting change. You anchor new beliefs not just in your mind, but in your movement. You prime your body to be a vessel of power, not paralysis. When you show up to life in a state of certainty, your decisions change, your voice changes. The way people respond to you changes, not because the world suddenly got easier, but because you're no longer entering it with hesitation. You're stepping into it with command. Your physiology is your first tool. It's the one thing you always have access to. It's the fastest way to shift your emotions, your beliefs, and ultimately your results. Clarity destroys fear. When you're uncertain, when you're unclear, when you're in the fog, fear thrives. It feeds on ambiguity. It grows in the shadows of indecision. But when you bring clarity into the room, fear loses its grip. It can't survive in the presence of a clear vision, a definite target, a well-defined next step. Most of the fear people experience in their lives isn't about actual danger. It's about the unknown. The what-ifs, the imagined scenarios, the infinite outcomes swirling in their heads with no direction, no structure, no anchor. That's where fear multiplies. Clarity is power. It's the ability to define exactly what you want, why you want it, and what needs to happen next. Without clarity, your mind becomes a breeding ground for hesitation, self-doubt, confusion, and worst of all, inaction. Action requires direction, and direction comes from clarity. You can't move with speed if you don't know where you're going. You can't be confident if you're unsure what decision even needs to be made. So instead, people spin, they analyze, they wait, they hope something becomes obvious. But clarity isn't found, it's created. It's something you generate by asking better questions, making decisions, testing your direction, and owning the process. When you don't have clarity, every obstacle feels bigger. Every voice of doubt feels louder. Every challenge feels personal. But the moment you get clear on the outcome, everything shrinks back down to size. You stop playing defense. You stop reacting to life. You step into the role of creator and you start moving with precision. You know what to say yes to. You know what to walk away from. You know what to build, what to break, what to keep, and what to leave behind. Fear loves confusion. It's in that swirling mess of uncertainty where it grows roots. But once you define the problem, once you label the fear, once you shine light on it with clarity, you strip it of its power. It no longer controls you because you're no longer blind. You can see it, you can speak it, you can navigate around it or through it with strategy instead of panic. It's not that the fear disappears, it just no longer owns you. Most people think they're afraid of failure, but what they're actually afraid of is not knowing what failure would even look like. They haven't defined the risk. They haven't articulated the downside. They haven't clarified what's truly at stake. So fear takes the wheel and drives them into paralysis. But when you sit down and define it, when you write it out, when you get specific, something amazing happens. The fear shrinks. You see it for what it really is, a fog, not a wall, a whisper, not a shout. You gain clarity by deciding. Every time you make a decision, even a small one, you narrow your focus. You create momentum, you eliminate noise. And momentum is the antidote to fear. You don't need to have it all figured out to move forward. You just need to define the next step. Clarity doesn't always mean having the full map. Sometimes it's just about knowing the next mile. And when you take that mile, the next one reveals itself. Step by step, the fog clears and fear loses its leverage. Clarity is also about purpose. When you know why you're doing something, it becomes a lot easier to push through discomfort. If the pain has a purpose, it becomes bearable. When you don't know why you're doing it, or who you're doing it for, the fear feels heavy, overwhelming, even paralyzing. But when your mission is clear, you gain access to a level of drive that overrides fear. Purpose is fuel, and clarity of purpose is a direct assault on fear. When you know what matters, distractions lose their power, noise fades, doubt gets quieter. You're no longer trying to do everything. You're locked in, focused, aligned. You also create clarity by removing what doesn't belong. Sometimes fear comes not from a lack of goals, but from having too many voices, too many options. Too many open loops in your life. When everything is important, nothing is. And that kind of mental chaos breeds anxiety. But when you take the time to cut out the unnecessary, to simplify, to declutter your mind, your commitments, your environment, you create the space for clarity to emerge. Simplicity leads to certainty. And certainty kills fear. Fear also lives in the stories you tell yourself. Stories that are vague, exaggerated, or undefined. I'll never be good enough. What if I fail? This always happens to me. These stories are fueled by the lack of clarity around who you are, what you're capable of, and what's really true. But when you slow down and interrogate those stories, when you bring awareness and ask the hard questions, what does good enough actually mean? What would failure actually look like? Has this really always happened to me? You begin to replace those vague fears with precise facts. You start to reclaim your mind from the grip of generalized anxiety. Clarity doesn't mean you won't feel fear, it means you'll know what to do with it. It means you'll see fear for what it is, a signal, not a sentence. It means you'll be able to make fear work for you, not against you. Because when you know where you're going, you can afford to feel fear and still move. You're no longer relying on emotion to decide your direction, you're relying on your clarity. That's how leaders operate. That's how creators build. That's how impact is made. Not by waiting for fear to vanish, but by getting so clear that fear no longer gets a vote. You gain clarity through movement, through trying, through feedback, through decision. You don't sit around thinking your way into clarity. You move, you refine, you listen, and you adjust. Every step forward teaches you something. Every win sharpens your aim. Every failure reveals more of what matters. And through that process, fear loses ground. It has less room to operate because your focus has increased. Your vision has sharpened. You're no longer looking in 10 directions. You're locked in on one. The more you practice clarity, the faster you'll move, the less you'll tolerate confusion, the quicker you'll rebound from setbacks, because you'll have trained your mind to slice through fear with precision instead of emotion. You'll know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how to keep going. And that kind of certainty is rare. That kind of inner direction is magnetic. It's what makes people unstoppable. Not because they're fearless, but because their clarity is louder than their fear. Fear is a signal, not a stop sign. It's a message from your nervous system that something meaningful is at stake. It's a response to perceived risk, real or imagined. The problem is that most people misinterpret that signal. They think fear means don't. Don't move, don't speak, don't act, don't try. But in truth, fear is just feedback. It's data, it's energy. And when you learn to read it, when you stop making it the enemy, you can actually use it as fuel. You can flip the script and use fear as the compass that points to growth. Every time you feel fear, it means you're standing at the edge of your comfort zone. It means something inside you is about to be challenged. An identity, a belief, a pattern. That's not a warning to retreat. That's an invitation to evolve. The strongest transformations come from the moments of greatest resistance. And fear shows up right before those moments, right before the breakthrough. It's the body's way of asking, are you ready to level up? Are you willing to step through this threshold, not around it? The challenge is that fear often disguises itself as logic. It sounds reasonable. It says, let's just wait a little longer. It says, you're not ready yet. It tells you to gather more information, get more opinions, wait until the timing is better. But all of that is just fear wearing a suit. It's still hesitation. It's still avoidance. And it still leads to the same result. Nothing changes. You end up protecting your comfort, but sacrificing your potential. You avoid the pain of failure, but you trade it for the slow burn of regret. When you stop treating fear as a barrier and start treating it as a teacher, everything shifts. You begin to ask better questions. What is this fear trying to show me? What am I really afraid of? Is it failure or is it being seen? Is it rejection or is it success and the responsibility that comes with it? When you get curious about fear, you take back your power. You stop being a victim of your emotions and become a student of them. You realize that fear is not the enemy, it's the edge of expansion. Fear will always exist, especially if you're growing. In fact, the absence of fear isn't courage, it's stagnation. If you haven't felt afraid in a while, you're probably not playing big enough. You're probably living inside a version of life you've already mastered. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't confuse safety with fulfillment. Fulfillment doesn't come from staying safe. It comes from progress, from challenge, from impact. And fear is part of that process. It's baked into the formula. You can't bypass it. You have to learn to dance with it. Most people wait for fear to go away before they act. But the truth is, fear goes away because you act. Action is the antidote, not thought, not planning, not waiting. Movement is what quiets fear. Every time you take a step through it, the signal gets weaker. The fear shrinks, your confidence grows, and your nervous system recalibrates. You're teaching yourself that fear is not fatal, that just because something feels uncomfortable doesn't mean it's dangerous. The mind learns through experience. You can't think your way into courage. You earn it by moving forward with fear sitting right beside you. When you reframe fear as fuel, you change your relationship with pressure. You start to welcome it. You see it as a sign that you're stepping into something that matters. You stop resisting the nerves and start using them. That surge of energy in your body before a big moment, that's your system gearing up for impact. That's power, not panic. That's focus, not failure. The same chemical cocktail that produces fear, adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine, can also produce peak performance. It's how you interpret it that makes the difference. Fear is also a powerful compass. It points you toward the places you most need to grow. Think about the thing you're most afraid to do right now. Maybe it's speaking up, starting something new, walking away from something old, whatever it is. That fear is shining a light on your next level. It's not saying stop, it's saying look here. Because where the fear is, the growth is. Where the resistance lives, the treasure is buried. Most people run from those places. But the ones who grow, the ones who build powerful lives, they run toward them. They learn to see fear as a signpost, not a threat. You can also use fear to sharpen your vision. When fear shows up, it forces you to get clear on what you want and why it matters. It demands that you choose. Are you going to be ruled by comfort or driven by purpose? Are you going to let your future be dictated by avoidance? Or are you going to step into alignment? Fear is a clarifier. It exposes the gap between who you are and who you want to become. And it's in that gap where transformation happens. Not by waiting for it to close, but by stepping into it and growing stronger with every move you make. Fear doesn't need to be eliminated, it needs to be reinterpreted. The presence of fear means you care. It means something is on the line. It means you're playing in the arena instead of sitting in the stands. That's where life happens. Not in the avoidance of fear, but in the mastery of it. Not in pretending it's not there, but in learning to lead anyway, to act anyway. You can train your nervous system to handle fear. Just like a muscle, the more you expose yourself to the edge, the more capacity you build. The more you say yes in the face of fear, the more evidence you collect that you can handle it, that it's survivable, that it's not a wall, it's a wave. And waves can be ridden. Fear is like that. It rises, it peaks, and then it passes. If you don't run it, if you stand tall and breathe through it, you'll realize that you're stronger than the story in your head. You always were. The ones who lead, who create, who change things, they aren't fearless. They've just reprogrammed the way they respond. They've stopped seeing fear as the enemy and started seeing it as a challenge to meet, a signal to follow, a path to take. They use fear the way a pilot uses wind, something that can be leveraged to generate lift, something that pushes them higher instead of holding them back. That's what it means to use fear as fuel. That's what it looks like to build a life where fear becomes the doorway, not the dead end.